Hello, ladies and gentlemen, everybody of the internet and ninjas. Welcome to the very last stream that we have on the birthday stream. I am joined here by the wonderful, awesome Ariel Landrum.
Hello.
How you doing?
Animal Crossing.
How you liking Animal Crossing so far?
Oh, it's fantastic. I don't know. Here, let's see if I can. I can't stream. I'm not tech savvy, but I can put things up to the mic. So, or the camera. So there's my Lucha Libre mask.
Yo, let's go.
And my space jacket. Oh. Yeah.
Well, hello, and how's the season been? How's the weather been right now with the 100 degrees? Were you able to at least cool down a little, or?
Yeah, we have a pool.
Okay.
And so sometimes I stick my feet in it, and I remind myself how cold it is, and then I'm like, oh wow, the top half's really hot, and the bottom half's really cold, and then I put a jacket on, I go inside the house and put on the air conditioner. So, really, a 24/7 air conditioning is the...
Hey, you know
the
what?
answer to global warming.
Well, yeah, let's put more Freon into the. So.
Bro, don't be coming at me with them words, Freon.
No, I'm just talking about pollutants and everything else that goes into the environment. But like, honestly, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate you coming here. And guys, I like to introduce to somebody that helped me really well in 2019. There was a moment where I had probably one of the most annoying, frustrating days. I can't say one of the most worst days of my life, because so many other days have been worse and people just struggle through other shit. But it's my car broke down, tire popped, almost didn't get that. AAA didn't fix it, so I almost got hit by trucks on the freaking freeway. So it was a dangerous, scary time, and there was somebody else that was in the car with me. And luckily, James helped me. And luckily you decided to come in, and you're like, I can go ahead and help you out if you want to go ahead and walk some pups, and I can front you some money up in front. And I got to establish one of the greatest bonds with three of the most beautiful dogs in my life. I got to just hang around with awesome people at the time of there, and honestly, I've learned so much from you in the biz that we've gotten to sit down and talk, that I appreciate every little interaction that we do. So thank you.
Thank you. That's sweet. Oh my god. In my feels.
So yeah.
I appreciate you. You really saved me when it came to my dogs. Like you mentioned, I have 3 of them, and I'm really into the idea that they need to walk. I feel like that feels right. I don't know how other dog people do it, but them getting walked for how long you walk them, because it 10 minutes isn't enough for any dog, and we've got 2 rather large ones. So the fact that you're willing to go for hours, pretty awesome.
Well, that's my whole thing. I'm really good at stamina. I mean, it's the only reason why my exes still want to talk to me.
Oh, and you're single?
Well, no, I am in a poly relationship.
Oh, willing to date multiples? Check. Can commit to a schedule because he walks dogs? Check. Is a dog lover? Check.
Animal lover. I'm trying to get some work to be on a ranch in order to see helping out.
Is a beast and an animal? Check.
And even when I broke my hands, I was like, can I still walk them?
Yeah, that scared me. I was like, but you have a broken hand, and the dogs, for me, they pull.
Yeah.
But maybe they listen to you because they actually like you and know that you're gonna walk them. So.
Yeah. That took a little bit of time, and I was honestly appreciative. I think the with you allowing me to be able to walk them 5 days a week and be able to break them up, so it's each one of them got 1 day where I gave them an individual walk, and then they gave them the pair walk. And then the time when I wasn't there for about a month and then came back to walk with them, they became so much more like, okay, we want to listen to everything just so that we can go on this walk. They seriously thought that I was mad, or probably because like they were happy and they're like, we're not gonna fuck up, I'm sorry, and like, you know, please. And Maddie was just like, as soon as we got to a corner, because of this, I don't know if anybody else knows about this Great Dane dog, but like as soon as we get to a corner, she tries to walk across the street and she pulls heavy. Now when I start walking in that direction, she looks back at me, and if I'm not looking in that direction of that sidewalk, she will stop. And I was like,
What a
that's
good
so
girl.
good. Baymax doesn't bark at motorcycles for the most part now. And like, same thing, like he'll walk on the side of me and he'll look at me. I was like, Baymax, and he'll look at me. And the way that he'll talk is like, Baymax, good boy. And he's like, his tail starts wagging, but he doesn't do anything that's now in the, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm sorry. He doesn't try running out in the middle of the street. They've all like been much better dogs. I think the hardest one, honestly, was probably Blue, because she was the favorite. And she thought that she was spoiled and she can get away with everything. And so
But
like,
she's everybody's favorite.
yeah, so like
That's
after
my girl.
when Baymax and Maddie started getting the attention for listening, she started being like, well, what about me? I was like, you gotta be a good girl too. I can't just give you the love. And so like she would try pulling on, there's other dogs. I was like, Matt, like Blue, no. And like she would keep doing this and I'd pull her on the side. And then like that's when she finally started to listen, because that was the hardest part, is her always trying to go up to other dogs that are barking at gates.
Yeah. Yeah, and she does it, I think, more when Baymax and Maddie are
Yeah.
there. I think it's very much like a, I'm gonna show off, like I'm a big top dog. I'm not gonna do anything.
Like Maddie was another one that whenever we would go close to dogs, like she was the first one that would pull toward them. But yeah, that's another thing that she ended up becoming really really good with, is like now it's just like, hey, and like, you know, we'll walk to the side. I was like, come on, let's go this way. I was like, all right, you guys don't bark. And I will see times when like when it's just getting so hot and Maddie's like, I need to relax, I'll sit down in the grass and I'll do that. Like I'll pet her, like we'll play around for a little bit, and just so like they can kind of like relax a little bit, and then I'll try finding like cooler streets or cooler areas that we can get like a little bit of that rush and get them like that little bit of exercise. But I know that by the time that we get close back at the 2 hour mark, they are not wanting to walk in any other direction. They will be like, please, let's go to the door.
Yep, they are done.
So I wanted to ask you, you started to focus on at least for your doctrine, what is it that you're focusing on with that, and what became kind of the driving point to that?
So so I don't know if your peeps know. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm licensed in the state of California, Nevada, Colorado, Oregon, and Florida,
Wow.
and Kansas.
Let's go.
And so since 2015, since I've been licensed, I've been doing online therapy. Even so, that was obviously before the pandemic. And I was helping other therapists transition their practices to all online when the pandemic hit. And
Wow.
one of the things that I incorporated, or included in my practice, was geek therapy, and specifically for some clients, gaming therapy. And that is still very much in therapy, like a radical sort of move. So there are official play therapists, and therapeutic play has always been part of a therapist role. So a child can go into a room and play Uno, like Simon Says. And so Simon Says is activating your executive functioning, right? During states of hyperarousal. Oh, I'm really excited, but I have to pay attention because I don't want to be called out when Simon Says, right?
All right.
Those are skill sets that so many youth and now adults that the statistic is the average gamer is actually 33 because they have the funds to game, right? So many gamers have these skill sets that they use in gaming. And it's a medium that a lot of youth and younger generation gravitate towards, just whole and completely. Like it's part of their world,
Right.
and it makes sense. We grew up with gaming. I I played duck hunt, right? So like I understood the concept of achieving certain goals or challenges. Um, and now as games have become more expansive, there's access to games that are world building and non-linear. So not non-campaigning, non-story, right?
Hmm.
Um, and even achieving stories, that type of gameplay can be used in therapy, but non-linear play can be adapted in so many different ways. So I now am in a doctorate program, and I'm hoping to maybe incorporate my dissertation around um, uh, gaming,
Hmm.
gameplay, and online gaming. So that there'll be more. There's already research out there that shows that it's beneficial. There's a lot of research on just gaming in the therapy room without being online.
Hmm.
Now there's a little bit more research about online gameplay, and there's a lot of research about utilizing avatars, but a lot is not a lot in the sense of how much empirical data there is on so many other therapeutic interventions, right?
Right.
Definitely more than 5 years ago, definitely more than 10 years ago. But, I think every little bit helps. And particularly when it comes to therapists, you'd be so surprised. They're very judgy towards other therapists.
Really?
They're so empathetic to their clients. I should say those. I say we because I know I can be judgy. We're very empathetic to our clients. We're very open. We're very vulnerable, and understanding, and really wanting to get to know how our clients have strengths. When it comes to other therapists, there's just this light bulb that goes off that assumes like I know more than you and that you're wrong about something, and certain topics were button issues. So before I had so many therapists tell me, "You're an online therapist. How is that legal? How's that ethical? Like, how
Wow.
how are you going to keep the client safe?" And I'm like, "Bro, if a client was dysregulated in your office, you're not going to do anything to touch them. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know any therapeutic intervention that involves tackling a client. Now, maybe in a hospital setting, an inpatient, very slight residential settings, they can have grabs, right? But
Hmm.
I don't know any private practice therapist that, like, if you say you want to hurt yourself, my first response is to tackle you and lock the door, right? No, I'm going to try and regulate you. I'm going to calm you down. We're going to use our coping skills. We're going to look at our safety plan. And then if all else fails, call 911,
Right.
right? I can do that online. Like, I know where you are. I call 911. We stay video. They get there. I walk the police through so that you feel supported, get taken and assessed, right?
Yeah.
It's very rare that I've had to do that too. So a lot of therapists just assumed online therapy was a inferior form
Hmm.
of providing treatment. That through the video screen you could not make real connections, or on the phone you couldn't make real connections, really invalidating like the experience of, if home is a safe place to you, if your bedroom is a place that you retreat for comfort, if you have invited me in that space and I teach you
Yeah.
skill sets to help regulate your world, you're going to grab those skill sets even faster because you're already comfortable. When
You're
you
in the
go to
most.
therapy,
Yeah, you're in the
yes,
most
yes,
vulnerable place right there.
and feel protected because you're
Yeah.
surrounded by the things that make you happy, that make you
Yeah.
feel calm. Versus my therapy office is a new place for you. You have to orient yourself and get used to that environment,
Hmm.
orient yourself to me and get used to me, and then orient your actual schedule to travel there and travel back. It's a lot of hurdles that you have to jump to build a therapeutic alliance. Whereas online, if you are in your home and you feel comfortable, as soon as we turn on, I know that you started the session comfortable. You're going to be more vulnerable and you're going to be more willing to listen and comply, especially when we're talking about like making.
Making what?
So,
Sorry.
safety plans. So,
Okay.
like, if you are starting to have thoughts of self harm, what are ways
Right.
that we can, coping skills we can use, people that we can
I see.
activate to help support, right?
Hmm.
So when we're talking about online gameplay, now people are doing online therapy. Pandemic happened, they've transitioned. A lot of the therapists that told me that it was unethical and I didn't know what I was doing reached out to me for support, and I supported them. And I helped them get the legal paperwork, the documentation. I
Hmm.
helped them realize how to talk on screen. A lot of them would like look directly in the camera, which is like creepy. It's like, no, you look at the monitor, you look at the reflection of the person. That'll be you looking into their eyes, tune you want. But they're still against online gameplay, and they're working with children. So it's so hard for them to connect because you've got to really think about your population. The generation now, their experience with screens and TV is things move, things transition,
Yeah.
right? It's not stagnant and fixed. It's not like when we had, Mr. Rogers, one camera just paneling the same person, oftentimes just stationary. We don't have that experience. So when your screen turns on and you have a kid in front of you, that's how they're used to seeing individuals on screen. They're gonna assume that same energy and activity. And if you think that you're gonna like be very frozen, it's not gonna work.
Right.
Um, so uh, some of them are dipping their toes into like Roblox, which is really and Minecraft, because you can get private servers for Minecraft, and I love using Minecraft in therapy.
Yeah.
And now, because of animals, I see more and more people using that for therapy, but it's still a like radical hot button issue.
I think above all, Animal Crossing honestly can help people understand how to work in this modern society, because you have the level of like, you're building like from this debt, you're trying to build something for yourself, and like you see the things that you can do for fun, but there's a goal that it puts you toward. And so since we lack classes in economics, I really do think it does a really good job of being able to teach that. And I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this this nonprofit that I work for called StackUp. It's called stackup.org, and what they do is they help out military vets and people that are active in the military and vets by providing them nerd culture. So they'll drop off supply crates that actually have like PS4s, that have like 360s, Xbox Ones, and stuff like that. And like they're trying to help out individuals that are stuck in through like moments of like PTSD or and being able to find other people that want to play D&D with them has definitely helped out a lot to open up in the world of the military, where they've just been like, it's a fearful world to open up about like this nerd culture when like people are going to ridicule you by like, oh, you're not manly enough, and like you see that same thing almost everywhere. But yeah, it's cool that I think maybe that like the sign of this therapy could also help out with vets as well, because you've seen the positivity of that from cultures being able to work together.
No, I do work with active duty military and their families, and I use fandoms and geek nerd culture to really help explain some very difficult concepts. Not only are they like abstract, but if we're talking about a traditional Western society, we raise most of our males, or identified males, to hide vulnerable feelings, right? Because the assumption is I'm vulnerable, that equals weak. Versus I'm vulnerable, so I'm open to change, or I'm vulnerable, so I'm open to hope or desire, feeling value, right? So when you can't find words to say how you feel, you're going to really feel stagnant. You're not gonna be able to connect with other people in the way that that you are meant to, in a very human way, because emotions are chemicals in our body, right? And I prescribe to the theory that emotions are motion. They have the word motion in them. They're meant to move us from one state to another. So I feel uncomfortable right now. Well, that chemical is telling me I don't feel safe or protected or supported, and that's what I'm trying to feel. So this emotion is trying to move me to the next feeling of homeostasis or comfort, feeling comfort. But if I can't even tell you that I don't feel safe, how am I supposed to be able to tell you how to protect me?
Right.
So with fandom and with geek culture, with gaming, with movies, with comics, you can point at a character and say that suffering that they're experiencing, that's what I experience. And now you have a sort of like a framework. This is what it looks like, this is what it sounds like, and I can describe it. It's become tangible as opposed to like out in the world, inaccessible knowledge.
Hmm.
So I think yeah, I think using gaming, I think using just any part of geek culture is going to a lot of people, and it definitely is going to a veterinarian who, or I mean, a veterinarian. Well, yes, veterinarians too, but veterans
Yeah.
who have transitioned out of military life, because even if they don't have PTSD, there's a shock in re-entering civilian culture and
Right.
civilian mindset. A lot of my service members who are retired, they struggle with having to calm the part of themselves that is authoritative and seeks justice.
Yeah.
Like if someone cuts them off, they immediately get activated and like, you could have harmed me and my loved ones in this car, and now I have to do something about it to save all of them, right? And that kind of energy can't be used in civilian society. If
Hmm.
that guy was a dick and he cut you off, he did nearly endanger you, but you are safe, your family's safe. And you know, maybe you can, if you believe they're drunk driving, you can report their license, but you kind of have to hold on to those very strong emotions and find a different.
That that's I mean that's true. That's understandable. And like in the way that our current society is, and I would say like I kind of get like the same thing of if I were to have somebody that like, well, when I'm driving here, let me explain this the best way that I can, I guess. I have a certain philosophy that goes on in my entire world, and this really expands the most in driving. This is why I hate driving when there are other people on the road. We have a duty to be respectful to the existence of other people. And so, in that kind of sense, we
But
don't.
we have a social construct that we are prescribed.
Okay, yeah, we have a moral obligation to ensure that we don't, like, we don't interfere with the followings of individuals, like, for our own selfish needs. I wholeheartedly believe that. And the worst offenders you usually see are people that are on the road. The reason why I say this is you'll see people that are like, oh, the speed limit's 35, so I'm gonna go 35, and both people will be blocking the lanes going 35 miles per hour without any kind of idea of, like, you know, who's around, if there's kind of a necessity of somebody, like somebody needs to go to the hospital because there's an injury. No, it's like, these are the rules, so I have to follow them, and like everybody else has to follow them. So it's that very authoritative mindset without the idea of why it's important to follow certain rules. But again, I always say that rules aren't created in the function to be followed. They're more as guidelines to understand why we should be doing things and why we should be doing these actions. And so, yeah, I say, like, I think in the United States, there are too many people, or there's too much teaching to be selfish, inherently selfish. Because like the whole, like, you have all this stuff, like you can gain all this stuff for yourself, you can do this, and so many people because of that refuse to end up taking accountability, because it's a lot easier to pass off that kind of blame onto somebody else, or it's like they've gotten away with it at some point in their life, and so they know that it's easier to get away with it versus taking the accountability. And
Well, and I
okay.
think I would challenge that a little,
Okay.
because I think it's also how you're framing the mindset of what selfishness,
Hmm.
right? Because being selfish is literally consumed with yourself,
Right.
right? And there are many times where we have selfish acts that are meant to protect us, right?
Hmm.
So if you are thinking about Western society, yes, we are individuals. We prefer individualism. We highlight people who, you know, get out of the gutters and make something out of it.
Right.
We put that as the model of everyone should be able to do this.
Right.
They can't. Nobody has the same resources and skill sets as everybody else, so not everybody can do this. And because not everybody can do this, um, uh, we continue to feed the mindset of individualism. Because if everybody could do it, then all of it's collective mindset. It's
Right.
community thinking. It's being community based, right? Um, but I would say like the culture or atmosphere now when it comes to selfishness is that when we are forced to actually look at ourselves, um, it almost is a shock because when you're being selfish, you are looking at all parts of yourself and you're
Yeah.
probably highlighting what the best or important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you are acting upon yourself, then you're realizing like you aren't all that great. um, uh, like you really an inflated balloon,
Yeah.
and it would be very easy to pop you. And so I think the fear for people who are selfish is that they're looking in what they think is they're looking at all parts of themselves because they want to feel good. They want to look at themselves and say, "I matter. I'm important." Because
Yeah.
that's a human right,
Mm-hmm.
right? To matter and feel important. Um, I would say people who aren't selfish or haven't been raised to be selfish in a culture, they already know that they matter and are important. So that to me just brings sadness to people who are selfish because it's like you need continuous reminding and validation of your worth in
Mm-hmm.
society. And damn, that's a hard life to live.
Yeah.
Like
That
that takes a lot of energy.
it's true because you look at individuals that are in that point, and I think one of the biggest things that I tend to reference is that we're given so much in a society that it's just enough that we kind of become content with what we have, and so that image of like, yeah, you can really fight so hard to get what you want, but like it's limited to basically people that have a certain amount of resource. And you see that kind of structure that ends up going on where it's like, oh yeah, like this is why this becomes possible. It's like, oh yeah, you can do it too, but and the truth is, in this kind of society, it is possible for everybody, but some people just have to try probably 5 times harder, 10 times harder, 20 times harder, 100. Like it's all is possible, but like it's not designed in a way where most people can benefit from.
The
And
blue girl is demanding to be led in the bedroom.
oh, Blue. Um,
Come, it's okay, mamas. Come on in. Go bed.
it's
Bed.
really great because having both you and Scotch here at the same time, or like on the same day, and again, like just these perspectives that really do help out. There's so many different angles that you're able to approach, and like I think that was like you both bring a really excellent point of it is tiring to not be knowledged in a certain way because like there's so
Hmm.
much about yourself that you don't know, and so that struggle is a different kind of tire. It's not the like, I'm tired, I'm working all the time. It's just like you're mentally exhausted.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think like you really highlighted some just themes of like the American lifestyle and dream, right?
Hmm.
Um, because we as a society tend to say, anybody can do this, um, but we don't actually look at what's needed to do it.
Right.
And like me, I'm half Filipino, I'm half white. I pass as white. Like you may look at me and just think I'm a white girl. I get so much privilege for that color.
Hmm.
There I could and even though there's many oppressions for me as a female, I have a lot of privilege as a woman. Like there's less chances that I'm gonna get pulled over and go to jail. If I have paraphernalia on me, right?
Right.
There's gonna be if I decided to have kids and get divorced, I probably would be able to easily win the kids in a court, right?
Yeah.
So when we are talking about like what success and what actual true reaching of American dream is, it it's all actually very impossible for a majority of a vast majority of our society. And it's certainly black people, it's certainly people of color, but it's even people who have disabilities. You know,
Hmm.
like you have to really highlight that as much as we try to make accommodations for everybody, there's so many microaggressions and it's just systemic oppression that the idea of success is that I got to wake up today.
Yeah.
And that's such a sad just like experience to know that that you survived and that's it, right? You're not allowed to thrive. You survived. So you're living the American dream.
How different would you say, I mean, that is from, say, before we even had these kind of civilizations? Because, I mean, would you not say that that was basically the whole idea of, like, you wake up another day, you're not eaten by a fucking tiger?
Yeah, but then that's not a civilization.
Yeah.
Oftentimes that was nomadic,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't until we started doing agriculture and literally planting roots that there was a reason to live amongst each other and create community culture. But even if you're looking at like mammalian animals, a lot of them still create community and support and
Right.
thriving and there is and even in those societies it's like this is a leader that I follow to migrate. I have to stay in this certain formation. Yeah, I we have to be in a herd to protect ourselves. So really highlighting the importance of success for individuals
Hmm.
versus a society limits us in the thought process of we're all lone wolves and a wolf is better with a pack.
Right, because you have your alpha, you have your omega, and you have, like, just everybody in the whole thing. The alpha's even like the back of that trail to ensure that everything else, and so that, like, you do see how communities do work in the animal kingdom. And
Mhm.
I mean, but then I guess, like, the good example would, like, you would see like a jaguar in the jungle, and it's like it's trying to hunt capybara, right?
Yeah.
And in hunting capybara, like, well, capybara in our community, so it's really hard to hunt that. So what's the next move that it has to do? It has to hunt a crocodile.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
feel like that's more of, like, the American culture of just like, all right, now you're alone. It's like, well, like, you can get this, you can get it easy, or it's like you're gonna really fight. But if you fight, you're gonna eat like a freaking, like, mad king kind of deal. And it's like you have this success, but yeah, it's, I don't know, for me. And I think a lot of the world now is starting to see, because you'll see, what is it, like, there's now a larger population that are vegan, much larger population that are, like, vegetarian around the world. Cities like Singapore, where they're just designed to be extremely green, where their
Hmm.
airport's
Hmm.
incredibly green, like, just very much in tune with nature, and, like, less of the individualism. But, like, what I said when I was talking with Scott, she's like, that's more of a modern design, because, like, their industrial revolution happened with this kind of knowledge in mind, while ours didn't.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
much like you would say, like, natural fires and other things, like, certain events have to happen before we were able to reach that next stage of evolution. I was like, that's scary to hear, but it's probably one of the truest statements.
Mm, mm. No, that's a really good point. I think a part of it is learned history. A
Hmm.
part of it is definitely generational trauma. But people forget that there's also generational resilience.
Right.
A lot of other communities, societies have gained so much resilience in community thinking and in collective thinking. Like, how can we keep everyone safe? That's its own heavy burden to bear, though. The thought that I would rather um, sacrifice all of the things that bring me desire and happiness because it does not bring everyone else desire and happiness. And I think that's where that fine line is. I work with a lot of individuals who are identify as queer or LGBTQ,
Hmm.
and a lot of them are from Asian American that, and you identify as a blight on not just the family but the whole community.
Right.
So it's such a hard fragmentation of the different parts of yourself because I really want to live my authentic individual. But also, if I do that, I'm somehow rejecting my entire being. that I'm rejecting my entire racial ethnic makeup, my family, my community. And so now I've got this sort of split, like, do
Right.
like, you feel compelled to, I have to make a decision of which of these are. So I would say that like, there's strengths and benefits, and definitely weaknesses or risks in all ways of being a there's ever going to be like a utopia. And I would say that's the strength of being individualistic in the US, is that it's okay for you to be different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's okay in the sense of like societal thought. Obviously, there are a lot of oppression against LGBT people and
Right.
people who are different, and there's a lot of othering. Um, but the idea of you get to be you, and this is part of the American dream, gets instilled in people that say, yeah, I have a right to be me. I have a right to be queer. I have a right to
Mm-hmm.
have a polyamorous relationship. These are things that are who I am,
Right.
and that's my American dream. So I'm gonna grab it and I'm gonna take it. Whereas it's very hard to be um, other. It's very hard to be queer in
Yeah.
uh,
Like even Mexican
communities
communities.
that are, yes, yeah, like in communities that are community mindset. If you look different, like, that's weird.
Yeah. No, that's true. Like that's actually a really good point, because I could think about just when you have a collective community of people that like everybody's like basically creating an echo chamber in that kind of sense, because everybody starts agreeing with each other. And somebody who like we may end up seeing as like, say, selfish in that group, and we end up treating them differently because it's like, oh, like you're supposed to be helping others, despite that there's a skill that they have that really can help others, and not really trying to learn the difference between that causes a rift.
Hmm.
That,
Yep.
that's a
Yep.
fantastic point.
I think I don't know if you saw the movie. It's an old movie. It's a Happy Feet. It's not
I
that old.
I haven't, but I know of it. I probably saw it, but I don't know. Maybe it was high.
So probably. So Happy Feet is an animated film with dancing penguin or dancing. And so all the penguins sing a song to attract their mate and their loved one. There's this one penguin who was born who can't sing. Like, he's the only penguin who can't sing.
And so he
Um,
dances.
so he dances. That's how he expresses himself. But that's so weird and so othering that he
Yeah.
gets ostracized. He decides to go out and prove who he is, and prove this theory that aliens exist and that aliens are humans. And the beautiful
Penguins
thing
and
about
aliens. Hold on, I'm kind of blown away on this story right now.
they're not real aliens. Like, to the penguins, the humans are aliens. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. But what ends up happening is he gets captured, put in a zoo. Sorta has a existential crisis, and then a meltdown, and then like sort of dissociates and has hallucinations. So that's his own thing.
How
but
much?
The great thing about the film is that he starts dancing for the humans.
Uh-huh.
And so now because we're humans, we're like, why are they dancing? And we put like a tracking device on him, and we send him back to his home, and he gets like reconnected with his family. And then the humans come, and now he's proved that aliens exist, and they're like, well, what do we do? And he was like, oh, the humans communicate through my dancing because they don't speak penguin and they can't sing. So then he dances, and then the humans are like, oh, now all the penguins are dancing. And the resolution is that they've decided they will not fish anywhere near the penguins, and the penguins have a thriving ecosystem because he communicated in a different way. And because he was different, he was able to use that strength to better the community.
And so, yeah, that's the good parts about being different, like having to learn how to be able to use that. And I guess that's a good part about the individualism, is like seeking that self-identity. And that, I would say for me, I'm not sure how it was. ¿Qué pasa, Tavo? Like, it was difficult for me being, like, looking as white as I am, being a part of the Mexican American community. Like, because I was like, I'm not white enough for white people. Like, I'm too Mexican, so I'm not allowed for that. And then, like, to Mexicans, I was too white. But like, my best thing is when I stopped caring about that. When I stopped caring about trying to belong to a community, and I just started feeling like I wanted to succeed. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to do things. Like, what do I have to do to reach that kind of happiness for myself? Because I can no longer rely on anybody else. Nobody can give me, like, in the truth, not even I can no longer rely, but like in the truth of it all, from the very beginning, nobody can give me that same kind of happiness that I can give myself.
No,
And
you're
yeah,
absolutely right. Not only mentally and emotionally, but actually physically.
right.
Like your brain is creating chemicals that give you joy. And there are things around you that you yourself that give you joy, but that's because you knew that they gave you joy and you made them.
Yeah. I I want to ask you because I'm actually trying to work on a paper myself. That, and I don't know how to really dress this up in the proper way, but I wholeheartedly believe that despite that, say you and I and everybody else that's here in the chat speak the same language, we are speaking a different language. So just because we're using the same words, we translate it. It's like I can say something, and you see it more commonly through text. You saw it more commonly through Facebook. It's just like everybody hears like what we know is what I like to call meta reality. So we know our reality, and we adjust, I would say, other realities based on the perception of what we think the other is going to react to. And so in that sense, like if you are that level of aware, you're now making the conscious decisions to change your actions based on this new level of reality. And it's not necessarily right, it's just your own reality into a deeper level, which can help or it can be destructive. And I think the more that, instead of trying to go into those meta realities and start saying like, oh, maybe these people believe this, it's a whole lot better that we start trying to ask the proper questions of how do we translate what it is that the other person is saying, despite that we're talking the same language.
So you're really talking about like individual, like and internalized meaning.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's like as a child when we're learning language, right? I can point at Blue and say dog, right? I
Okay.
realize that that's an animal with four legs and is kind of furry.
I thought you were talking about the
Um,
color.
no, my dog, Blue.
Okay.
Well, there you
I'm
go.
like, whoa, how?
Miscommunication. But I'm still learning language, right?
Yeah.
So you show me a goat that's furry and has four legs, so I'm gonna go dog, and you're gonna go no goat, and now I've got to try and make space in my brain for this whole other animal, dog,
Uh huh.
right? Okay, I've learned dog and goat. So I'm gonna point, dog, no, goat, no, cow, the fuck? Yeah. So as we start to develop language, we start to make, neural pathways in our brain that create connections,
Hmm.
right? And those connections tell us and inform us of meaning, of understanding. But as we start to get older, we experience words in very different. So if someone says dog to me, I immediately think blue, right? But if I say dog to someone else, they might think of their corgi, they might think of Cujo. Like that word triggers a different memory and emotion.
Uh huh.
And that's why it's very difficult to like learn names, because we don't have a framework of like what a James looks like, right? Um, and so, or we have a steady framework. Like I have my boyfriend James,
Yeah.
so that comes to my image in my mind. I may be able to make the connection. Oh, okay, your name's James. That's a very emotional name for him, so I'm gonna remember that your name is James, right?
Right.
But if you introduce yourself as Steve, I might not remember that because that name isn't as pertinent to me. Or if you introduce yourself as Jennifer, that's the most common name, right?
Right.
It's one of like all these names are so common, they're like dog, right? And so, how do I put space in my brain to identify you as specifically this one Jennifer, this other Jennifer?
Hmm.
So now we're talking about communication as a framework for understanding, and we will use our learned experience to interpret meaning. And it happens all the time. When I'm in therapy now, one of the largest conversations I have many individuals who are adults is they texted K. What do you think that means? Right?
They texted
It's like,
K.
yeah, like instead of okay, just K. for some people in the community, if you type the word K and not at least put an OK, that is apparently a slap in the face. Like it immediately triggers. I wasn't good enough for you to write another freaking letter to respond to my words to you. You couldn't say okay. You just had to write K. And that's how I'm hearing it in my head, right? K. Versus probably the sender has no idea that they've offended somebody by just writing K.
Right.
And so now I'm going to perseverate on that, and I'm going to hold on to these feelings, and I'm going to lash them out at a different time. I have so many couples who this triggering event is not where the emotions came out.
Yeah.
The emotions came out way, way later. And now I'm arguing with you about something that has nothing of importance. You know, you didn't fold the towel correctly, right? And what really I'm arguing about is the fact that I felt that you ignored me, put me aside, didn't support me, and didn't care about me because you didn't put enough energy or effort to write 2 letters. Right? That is so much heavy meaning for just 1 word sentence, right? So then if you're talking about entire communities, of course we have miscommunication.
Yeah.
Of course we have misunderstanding. Of course our realities are different from each other and our truths are different from each other. Because I will never know why these words bring up certain images and feelings in you, and why words for me bring up certain images and feelings. And until we get to know each other, you know, we're gonna have a better understanding.
Yeah.
But it's never this 100%. I'll always know what you're thinking.
Right.
Like, I'm not a mind reader, right? So I would say if you're writing about communication, about different realities, it's definitely like learned and experienced reality that you have not lived my life every day of my life, so you're never going to know what my brain has stored and created around the words that you're using and what you're trying to express to me.
Yeah. No, that's actually exactly the point. And in that saying, it's like, because I've never lived your life, I should kind of start looking at the expression and the communication that we end up having, looking at your facial expressions, looking at the way that you respond to certain things to see what the proper way for me to be able to talk to you is. And if there is something that I would say does offend you in some kind of way, I think that becomes the responsibility of the person that's been offended to be able to be like, well, this is why it affects me. And this is like, you may not know this. And so I don't think that ends up falling onto the person that made the statement to begin with, because just like you said, we have no recollection or any conscious thought of your entire like history of existence. And so oftentimes, like, yeah, we have those like miscommunications because of those things.
I think some of the problem with miscommunication definitely is there are a lot of people who do make the effort to say you've offended me or you've done something to hurt me. And the person who's done that, they automatically think, well, that wasn't my intent. You kind of don't have a reason to feel hurt. They don't say it, right? It's this knee-jerk reaction of, but that's not what I meant, right? Versus like, oh, I'm sorry that I hurt you. Like, what do I need to do to change or be better?
Right.
That's really hard for people to do. So oftentimes people who are offended or hurt store that away. They don't get a chance to really educate the other individual, because like, what's the point, right? And I know that when I work with people in therapy, I always use sort of like the metaphor of like, if you were in a hallway in a chair and your legs are sticking out and someone trips and they say, oh my God, you tripped me. You're gonna be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Right? You're not gonna be like, well, it wasn't my intent to leave these legs out and trip you, so you know that's on you.
If you want to know my personal response, I would say that it is the fault of the person that tripped over my legs for not looking at my legs. It's not like I actually stuck out my legs for that purpose.
But just because you didn't make an attempt to stick out your legs on purpose, you were talking about, you're saying like they should have observed. They should have seen the environment. But then we need to talk about you and you're observing. You're in a very skinny hallway and there's around you. Why would you stick your legs out?
Right. And I would agree. Like, for the person that is sitting down, they should be courteous about the people that are going around. But even if like say that they retracted it like a bit, and it's like, you know, that's the awareness that I was actually trying to refer to earlier about when we're driving, that we should be
Okay.
conscious about the
Should be.
people that are around. Like if you are going to be driving 30 miles per hour where everybody else is going 45, maybe you should go in the furthest lane out of the way, and so it's like you're not going to be causing that kind of leg tripping.
Mhm. But then we also have to look at, again, like you said, different realities, right? And different truths.
Hmm.
So maybe the reason you are having your leg stretched out is because you know, you have an actual leg problem,
Right.
right? That you have muscle spasm, and the best way for you to sit is to be sort of elongated and stretched, right?
Okay.
So how would this person know that got tripped by you? They wouldn't, right? They don't know your reality and your world. What they know or assume is that you are someone who's selfish and indecent and doesn't give a damn about anybody, is taking up space, and it has all these rights that you are trying to maintain and keep, and therefore squishing the rights of others. And you may not be doing that. That may not be your intent. But guess what? It's still happening because you are disenfranchising somebody from walking through that hallway, right? And that's how we as humans get in the way of each other all the time, is because, you know, we have to look at the things for our world, and it's very hard for us to look at things in other people's world. If your legs are really hurting because you have muscle spasms, or you have a condition, or you know, maybe you broke your leg and it's gonna have to stick out, it's in a cast, right? You're probably not going to be hyper focused on the hallway, and you're probably not going to be looking at other people, right? But in that sense, you know, if you are somebody walking in a hallway and you have to go somewhere, maybe you're rushing to help somebody because they're hurt, you know, maybe that's the only in and out building, right? Like, this is all metaphorical, but
Right. Right. Right.
you, we're humans. We have to live around each other, and we're gonna get in the way of each other. And being okay to apologize that you've done something wrong. It doesn't matter if you didn't have an intention to be hurtful towards somebody. Acknowledging that you hurt them is still a good thing. And that's where people have trouble with communication. Is nobody wants to admit they're wrong if they don't feel like they're wrong.
That's, I mean, I can definitely get that. I will say, at least for me, I think that there is still a responsibility in our part to be paying attention. If I, for me, if I was hypothetically the person with the injured leg, I would definitely be putting my leg in a way where I could stretch it, but out of the way of people. So it's like, that is, I think, is where I'd say, like, we have that, like, level of moral responsibility, where, like, we just have to try a little bit more to be cognitive of the people that are around. And same thing with the person that, like, ended up tripping with the leg. Like, if I was even in a rush, because I'm in a rush, I have to be paying attention to not be able to, like, jeopardize my own time. And
I mean, again, you're prescribing a lot of expectations on people that I don't know is 100% accurate.
I so like I want to ask this because like I like, we have a much different perspective on this, and like hearing from, say, somebody like Scotch, who like would say something similar to what I have, but he's also been in a position where he was fortunate to have that. I've been in a position where I've kind of been unfortunate for a majority of my life. Like, I've just been in bad situations, and I knew that the only way in order to get better was to ensure that I'm paying attention to everything. Like, when I became a better competitor in fighting games, it's because I paid attention to all of my surroundings. And these are the things that helped me become, like, closer to that individual, where I was able to reach my goals and reach, like, for example, I'll say that one neighbor of a person that really just doesn't like the collective of that household, if you know who I'm talking about. I got, if you remember, like in Thanksgiving, like this guy came after me, like just cussing me out. And I had one of the worst days that I was just psychologically, my mind was wrong, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna confront this guy because he needs to be he needs to know like what he's doing is not beneficial. It's not helping anybody, and like I don't like seeing people that like to bully their way, especially when I'm having like some kind of mental like situation. So going out over there and confronting him was something that I felt that I truly needed to do. And I feel that if I didn't do that, if I didn't put that level of responsibility, that kind of thing was just going to continue to exist.
Okay.
And so that's like being aware of his actions, being aware of that kind of motion meant that if I didn't do something, he was going to continue to do this to more people along the way. And so it's because he doesn't care about the spatial recognition and like that, like, you know, the space of other people. And I'm not sure why, like, of course, like I'm only assuming that like I'm getting harassed for doing absolutely nothing, and to him it's like I'm in front of his house, which like I'm seeing something from a completely different world. I don't know his history, I don't know what happened to him, so like I'm already making judgments that I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But like yeah, in that whole thing it's like because I felt like I'm now being threatened, it's like I can't walk the street because like I'm just trying to help out. It's like this needs to be fixed. And yeah, I felt that it works better when I at least tried to be aware of what was around, because like now I like, you know, I learned how to say hello in his language. So if I even ever see him, I still try to do that. I still try doing things to try making it better. And I'm also trying to be avoidant in his other way. And thank you for the birthday wishes, everybody. But yeah, I'm still trying to be avoidant in that sense. But it's like at least I'm making an effort to make it easier for his life and make it easier for my life as well. And I think as people, as like having the species that has that awareness, it should be upon our responsibility to at least try making it a little bit easier for everybody else, even if it's a hallway, even if it's a society, if it's a government, that I feel that should be our ultimate goal as human beings.
So again, you are speaking to sort of like a utopian thought process that there's some, and you're speaking to a reality you sort of want to see,
Right.
but it's certainly not a reality for everybody, right? If you're talking about
Of course.
individualistic truths or meta realities, because if you were to put me in that situation, I'm 4'11" and I'm like 117 pounds, right?
Right.
I may wish to confront somebody, but there's not a chance in hell I'm going to confront a large man, right? And I'm not even going to try and engage, because if I smile, you think that I like you, and you're going to bother me.
Right.
If I look mean or I try to be, you know, tell you to fuck off, you're going to be mad.
Yeah.
And probably retaliate, because there are assumptions about your power and rights and my power. And
I see
I'm
what
a
you're
female
saying.
and I'm small in a Western society that's very patriarchal. So there are more times in my world where I can't correct a behavior,
Right.
because if I do, I could get raped or murdered. And I highlight this all the time with James, because our thought processes are so different. And the great thing about him is he's very willing to have a dialogue with me. And the biggest thing that I talk about is two different things. Women often park near a door of a store, right? And the assumption is you're lazy, or you're really battling to try and get the lot space, right?
Right.
Yeah, because if I park too far away, I could get kidnapped, raped, or murdered. And if I park close to the door, I can get to my car safely. And if I do get kidnapped, raped, or murdered, at least the cameras can see me
Right.
and see who took me. I may have a chance to survive. I don't know any men who think like that. I really don't. It's a very few men who have been traumatized sexually who now have that thought process. And I say few men that I'm aware of that have vocalized it to me, right? Because again, you know, a sexual trauma towards male is very shunned upon in our society, right? And then I talk about at the gym. There are a lot of females at the gym who only go on the treadmill. And it's not that we don't want to get toned and use the free weights. It's the fact that at the treadmill, you as a male are less likely to harass me because I'm cornered and I'm
Right.
looking this way. If I'm at the free weights, I've had guys come up to me and go behind me and say, "Hey, you're lifting those." Like put their hands on me because of the
Right.
assumption that they have the right to, right? And it's just this automatic knee-jerk reaction, and they could be right. I probably am holding them wrong, but
But
instead of
their
trying to
approach.
get my attention and show me, or even let a trainer that's identified that works for the space tell me,
Mm-hmm.
no, they are attempting to interrupt me
Yeah.
and highlight my wrong, right? And oftentimes what ends up happening is like I'm spending all this money going to the gym and I'm using a treadmill. I end up probably like not going anymore, and I either do my workouts at home and do them wrong and injure or I do them right, but I lose that social connection with the workout community.
Mm-hmm.
Or I do classes where we're moving all the time, and again, I'm less likely to be harassed because we are constantly in movement. Again, I don't know many guys who think that way. I don't know many guys who have to methodically think about which areas in the gym I can work out without having hands on, right? And then again, if you're thinking about sort of the female experience, I have a lot of girlfriends who've recently gotten pregnant, and for some reason, people want to put their hands on a pregnant belly. It's like, bitch, I don't know you. Like, why are you touching me? But
Mm-hmm.
an automatic assumption that I've invited this energy in space because I have this pregnant belly. So our reality is about like educating people on like being more aware and responsive are very different because of
Right.
the vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah.
I think you definitely have way more strengths and resources in that department.
No, that's completely understandable. And coming from an individual that was raped and molested as a younger and like in my younger years, and kind of
Hmm.
it honestly skewed my mind of thinking like what was right and what was correct. So like that was a long fucking process, and like I'm not
Hmm.
gonna be like, oh shit, I'm sad that happened. Like I'm actually like it happened in my life, and it's fucked up that it happened. But I'm either gonna learn from it and I'm gonna work my ass out so that shit never happens again,
Hmm.
or like I'm gonna find a community that's gonna help me out through that and like learn things but like I can understand that like women don't get that same kind of support in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, I think there's definitely resiliency that you gain from trauma. Definitely post-traumatic growth is a strength that you gain, but getting there is not easy.
Yeah.
And when you have sort of like microaggressions or micro traumas, and you live in your daily world like with fear in the back of your survival in the back of your mind, it's literally hard for your brain to access executive functioning.
Mm-hmm.
Like I there's no way I can cognitively process
Yeah.
what's going on. I can't use thoughts to explain this, because it's so in the back of my brain. It's in my amygdala. It's in my fight or flight or right. And and when we're in that state, it shuts off our functioning. I don't need to do calculate if
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to run away from a tiger.
Right.
Right. So for you, you've gained so much post-traumatic growth that you've got empowerment as part of that growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see rights and justice as attainable because you have attained it for
Right.
and
That makes yeah.
that's not something that a lot of people have, and it's definitely not something a lot of people in trauma situations. So you are even more than you probably.
Sorry, you're cutting off a little bit. I heard that you were even more, and then
uh Resourceful than you
okay.
probably realize. I meant your beard is bigger than you.
All the wisdom is right over here. So the moment that I chop it off, dumb as fuck, guys. I'm
You're
done.
no longer the wizard that I'm gonna follow on my hero's journey. That's gonna give me support. You're
Yeah.
not white Gandalf.
I I can say like even to like a small fragment, I can understand the bit of like, you know, people like uncomfortably deciding that they want to like put their hands on like a woman's belly. Because when I started getting like these tattoos, and I can't say it's on the same level because that is way more fucking personal than somebody grabbing my arm, by the way. So anybody going up to a woman, like, you know, like touching their belly, because like, what is wrong with you, for like one thing? But number two, don't ever come up to me and grab my arm and say, oh my God, those colors are beautiful. That is honestly one of the most invasive things. And I've almost punched somebody of the opposite gender because they grabbed me without me looking. And that feeling is I'm already going to have my fight or flight.
Yep.
And
yeah, it's been activated.
Yeah. And so turning around and seeing it is like, all right, I know that I have to look before I respond, because I want to be more passive, but I know that I yet am at the stage of my life where I've attained that level of passiveness. And so that kind of like, I see it, I react, and I was like, pull the brakes. So yeah, it's scary. And I can just imagine that's fucked up. Don't do that shit, people.
It is so common for pregnant women to have strangers
God.
touch them or ask to touch them, right? And it's nice that you asked, but like, why?
Yeah.
It's just so, like I get that babies are cute and the pregnant woman is maybe glowing and adorable, but like why?
Yeah.
Right? But the other thing that a lot of particularly women of color experience in the clubs where it's like dark, they get wig checked. So someone will take their finger and touch right here to see if they're wearing a wig.
What the fuck?
And that's just like so creepy. And oftentimes, because it's in a dark club, they like fade off in the distance, and you have no idea who like dug their fingers.
The hell, man?
Yeah. So if we're talking about like different realities, like I know for me as someone who looks white, I'll never have that. No one's gonna assume that this hair is fake and try and like dig under it. Like it's just, that's never gonna be a reality of mine. But it's just like again, people who just assume that they have the right to do things, and it's just like I don't know. Maybe that's that selfishness. I don't know where the learned behavior is, but there are just general learned behavior in society, and some of them include, it's okay for me to put my hands on a pregnant woman. It's okay for me to check a woman of color's hair to see if it's real. You know, it's okay for me to grab people's tattoos. It's okay for me to put my hands on someone in the gym. Like I don't know. I don't know why. And you know, that's a dissertation for somebody else. Or if anybody who's listening to this is a psychologist or a sociologist and has the answer. But it's pretty gross. You know, like humans are awesome and gross at the same time.
I think most people say it the best way. It's like, individuals are intelligent, people are stupid.
Oh yeah.
As a collective, we're so terrible as a species, but like the things that we discover once we want to put our minds to it is incredible.
Like right now, this ability to talk to you and we're not in the same vicinity. This is just incredible technology that took years of development and ingenuity. And yet, you know, people wait till the very last second to turn left, and now I can't turn left. And like you could have just pulled forward some, and then gone, and then I could have gone, you know. But you waited at the light.
I think that's it, when it comes back to like me being about like, you got to pay attention to the other people that are around. Like in that kind of sense, if you waited too long to turn, you should just be like, you know what, I'm gonna eat this and I'm gonna go ahead and have to go to the next street and then make a left there. Like, be that responsible. Don't fuck up somebody else's life on that. Like, that's the sense of courteousness.
It's a sense of courteousness, but it all, you know, again, it goes back to like, do I really need to get to where I'm going that faster? Like maybe the universe is saving me from a potential car accident. You know, maybe there's some sort of blessing I'll get from this.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah,
that's a really good way to look at it.
I think there's definitely true beauty in the results of the unknown, right? There's just...
I'm actually gonna have to reevaluate the way that I drive now. It's still frustrating because like my mind is focused on a fast lane. It's like I have a goal, I have a place that I want to get, and I'm not gonna stop
for yourself.
anybody
You're
to
being
get there
selfish.
because I like my end result is like more selfless. But yeah, I'm being extremely selfish right now.
In those moments, yeah, because you need to for whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes being selfish isn't a bad thing.
Fair.
No, I try to always look. I get that instant and then I look at it, I'm like, okay, maybe something wonderful will come out of this. Like, you know, I will get to. Ooh, like, here's my real world example. It actually happened. You know, I was running. I was running really late to get to Costco before it was closing. But I had back-to-back meetings, and then someone like needed to pull me in to do something, and it was just like, bro, like we could have scheduled this. I hate it when people interrupt my time, and I was just like, woosawing it, right?
Right.
And the great thing was, I because I got to Costco so late, they were putting their go back away, and because they have the 2-item minimum on toilet paper, they snatch that shit at the register. But sometimes they're just so busy they can't put that stuff back. So I got the go back. I got that toilet. That was my reward for suffering through having my schedule consistently interrupted throughout the day. Because I got the Costco toilet paper.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's gold.
I'm gonna say a bidet is like so much more valuable at this point.
Well, we bought one and no one uses it that I'm aware of.
Like, it's so great.
So it's like a manual one that you have to go turn the water on and then use the spray. My grandma has a bidet with a remote, and we like to play catch the guest, where we'll have the remote and someone will be in the bathroom and push the button. That's evil. Don't do that. But also fucking hilarious. But here at this house, it's a manual one. They have to turn the water on, and then there's a hose. You gotta go. And it's like, I'm not gonna fucking do all that.
Right. Like, I don't know. For me, if I'm gonna have a cleaner ass, I'm gonna do the effort.
Okay.
That's just how I feel. It's like I don't want to take laziness over results.
Okay, so you're definitely the do it right the first time, be efficient.
No, I'm gonna fail a lot before I do it right.
Yeah, but once you know the right.
Yeah, once I know the right is, I'm gonna find that right, and then I'm gonna try to like improve that.
Oh, that's not even right still.
It's never right. That's the whole thing.
You have a very beautiful mindset in that you always want things to be better.
Yeah, I don't want it to be better in the sense where like I'm trying to be lazy. It's like, how can we improve this to help others out?
So again, you always want things to be better. There's this utopian or like overreaching goal of like we could be better. We could do better.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting like cognitive mindset, like that, like a worldview, like that you've decided that, you know, not only do you take it upon yourself to make things better, but that they can be and they should be. Versus people who are like, well, nothing will ever get better, so I'm going to accept sort of like a fate. So yeah, that's really interesting. It's good. It's a good energy to have that. Not even desire, but.
All right, I'm trying not to blush right now because you guys are like this is like one of the few times when it's like, all right, stop with the compliments because I have nothing to say right now, and I'm seeing in the chat going, all right, my face, the beard grew an extra inch.
Compliment,
yeah, the compliment beard. That's what happened. But like,
stick them in your beard for later.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, and that's just. I guess it had to do with a lot of, I've experienced so much in my life and it sucks. What I've seen, and I'm sure other people have seen much worse, but one of the greatest, and I'm gonna just paraphrase this because I don't even know what the actual quote, but when Nelson Mandela said, like, you know, what do you do when you're faced with, like, you know, all this racism? He's like, because I've seen it so much, why do I want to spread that? And like that, I could actually still feel it in my chest, like when I'm thinking about that. It's like, yeah, that's not what you want to spread, because like you're never gonna find a solution through violence. Like you're gonna keep repeating the same kind of thing. And so like when like the feeling when I saw this documentary, watching otters walk through the park of Singapore melted my fucking heart. And like I always tell people, I was like, I'm an asshole. I will start fights when I see that people are like in jeopardy. Like I will make sure that I'm defending stuff. But you give me something fucking cute, you put a kitten in front of me, and I'm just gonna be like, oh, like I will start melting in that kind of thing.
No, yeah, that shows that you have a softness or a soft side, and that's probably what's underneath the desire for justice, for resolution, for sort of world building and completing tasks like holistically, is that softness to preserve that part of you that says like the world can be a good place, and I see it within me, so I can definitely on the outside of me.
Yeah, and honestly, I'll say that this is something that I can't do alone. This comes with the aid of friends like you, of like Kyle, you in the chat, Rev, Terribly Bookish, Boba, like Megan. All of you guys are like collectively this kind of mindset as we start helping each other out and giving the new perspectives, because both you, Kyle, Scott, everybody has given me insight that I don't have for myself, and I'm not gonna have only seen in my eyes. I'm not gonna know the world of how like most women live. I have an understanding, but I would be like terribly dickish for me to say, oh yeah, like, you know, I know what to do in order to help out women. It's like, no, I can only listen and be like, what's something that we can do now? What's something that can help out collectively? And in that, I think we can honestly all work together. And yeah, it might be like idealistic, it might be utopianistic, like, you know, and people will tell me, you're a dreamer, but so was fucking John Lennon. I don't care that he got shot. He was living a fucking great life trying to do what he could to make that happen. If you're living your life, at least in my eyes, trying to make that change, you're living life right.
I mean, I think that definitely goes back to the topic of like geekdom and fandom,
Yeah.
and gaming and world building and gaming. What these mediums have shown us is our literal desire come to fruition, right? A hero story or journey. That sort of typical art is that my home was not as good in some way or another, and I left to gain skill sets, and now I've come back and I've changed my world, right?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about, you know, the desire to always look on the bright side, you know, to always see the world as what you hope it will be, and changing that hope as you learn about others and resources, like changing
Yeah.
or being made aware of like fucking people put their hands on pregnant women, like that's some stupid ass shit. Like now that you have that awareness, your hope is that won't happen anymore,
Right.
So your continuous utopian world building, your desires or your hopes are starting to grow, and that's what we see in these stories that we gravitate to, in the games that we start to master and use as our skill sets, is that we're perfecting something that we want to see in our world, where we're learning in language, and we're learning metaphor, and we're learning emotion, that we know is inside us, and maybe we just don't get to see in our regular world, but we have a right to see. Like, we have a right to feel like we're the hero of our story. We have the right to feel that we have support, that we have a campaign or crew, or, you know, people who got our back. We have a right to have a mentor to look up to. We have a right to be able to go home and bring back the skill sets that we gain and share it with others, right?
Yeah. And
How many times did I say right? Am I right? Or
am I right? Oh, I kind of left on there. It kind of left me somewhere. It's the topic of, like, you know, having rights. That's always been an interesting one to me, just because, like, I mean, yeah, I would say as a, I don't know, I can't get into that one because that's a deep rabbit hole of collective thought. But I think that, like, you know, in that quest to trying to find that perfect balance, that world, that utopian for us, I think that is kind of how we identify it. It's like it becomes the right to this kind of thing of happiness. And for some people, it's like, yeah, we deserve the right that everybody is allowed this kind of happiness. Some people, it's like, I deserve the right to conquest kind of deal. And like, you know, that becomes the war of fucking humanity. It's a terrible, scary thing. And yeah,
Well, I know in therapy, you know, we talk about emotional needs and their behavioral, right? There are emotional needs that we have, that are our right to have as
mhm,
human beings that feel. The behaviors that we act upon them to try and get those emotions met, those are the things that infringes on other people's
yeah,
rights. And so I do work with a lot of youth who are gang affiliated, and so it's like, look at all these bad things you've done. You joined a gang, hurt people, you know, you robbed, you carjacked, right? But let's look under that. What is that emotional need that's being met? You've got a community, you
right,
have a sense of belonging, you
right,
have a purpose, you're able to obtain resources to help you and your family. Now you feel structure. You gain a sense of belonging in this world. That's the right, those are those emotional human
mhm,
rights needs that are getting met
I see,
from you joining the gang. So if I look at only the behavior and say you're bad, the things you're doing are bad, you got to fix this, I'm basically saying you don't have a right to feel those things,
right,
you don't have a right to get those needs met, versus looking at the underlying feeling that's motivating the behavior. Oh, you're absolutely right. You do deserve community. You do deserve the right to feel like a leader. You do deserve the right to have a tribal belonging,
mhm,
and sense of purpose. You know, you're selling drugs. I wouldn't say like that's the best way to get those met, but damn, you are making money, and you are a good salesman, so you've gained
depends on
some
what
really
drugs you're
good skill
selling.
set.
I'm kidding, don't.
but but yeah, so I highlight that, and I say like, okay, so you've gained all these skills from your gang affiliated life, you've gained all these skills from selling drugs or carjacking, right? Could we find a way to use those skills, that they don't
Mm,
infringe on the rights of others? You still get your needs met, but you won't have to ever be put in a place of the jail or this
yeah,
residential facility, right?
mm,
And if they want to buy it, they can buy it. And if they don't, then we process that, because
yeah,
you know, you can ignore me. You have so many rights just sitting there. You can
right,
tune me out, you can dissociate. You don't have to listen to anything I say. You can tell me to F off. And the beautiful thing is, again, you're exercising your needs. You're telling me you need space. You're telling me you feel confused or that you're not supported. You're telling me that I'm being too authoritative and not including you in the conversation, or you think your needs are. You're using your voice to protect yourself, because you tell me to fuck off. Like, what does that mean? It
mhm,
means like back up,
yeah,
right? You feel vulnerable and not safe, and you're trying to seek safety. So you really have to look at, okay, there are these underlying behaviors, or these behaviors and underlying emotions, and how are those emotions making these behaviors possible, and how do we just sort of switch that?
I wanted to ask you one last topic because like it's looking like we're 20 minutes before like the 2 hour mark.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on psychedelics, like mushrooms or LSD, as used as method for therapy?
Oh, because I am not a medical doctor, I can't really say on the medical effects, because that's really medically, like a psychiatrist.
Right.
Um, uh,
Okay,
my
then what had
own
been your
part,
experiences?
I've never given any type of psychedelics before, and I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I am the most square, lame, straightforward person you'll probably know, or I feel like I will be. I'm allergic to alcohol. I've never smoked weed or anything else. never injected anything. I've mushrooms, never taken any type of pills that wasn't prescribed, and even then they weren't, psychotropics or
Right.
anything that was for mental health. So personal experience, I got none, right? If we're talking about just general understanding, what I will say is that, if you look at indigenous cultures, they often use peyote as part of,
Mm-hmm.
finding journey, right? And meaning and sort of going on a path and really engaging with different themselves. And oftentimes, or like drugs are gonna do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm saying that using any type of psychedelic automatically bad, then that's really like coming from a very European Western standpoint. Because
Right.
indigenous people were using it and their culture was right, and they used it to help create better understanding and meaning, and therefore were able to understand metaphor, able to communicate.
Wait, so
So
again,
in a
because
therapy,
you had a little cut off.
that they learned metaphor, meaning,
Mm-hmm.
communication, and a lot of these cultures, there's a understanding and appreciation of our elders and the wisdom they have.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna say like all drugs are bad, like that does no,
Right.
right? Can drugs be abused? Yes.
Yeah.
Are there drugs that we say I want to experiment? Yep, maybe personally you want to experiment, but I mean, in society, we probably all experimented a variety of drugs for years upon millennia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we pretty much know a good deal about what we're gonna expect. Like if someone hands you something, they're probably gonna give you like, oh yeah, you're gonna get a really good trip, right? So there's already a forewarning expectation. But when it comes to sort of like a therapeutic standpoint, I would say it'd really be the motivator who's prescribing them,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is their intention? And I would equate it to same as like video gaming. If I want you to play video games because I want to play video games, that is not for you and your treatment. That's for me and my
Right.
joy. If I want you to access executive functioning in a state of hyperarousal, to basically to center yourself and make decisions and keep focused, while you're sort of agitated, I'm gonna play video games,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're gonna build on your mastery. Like you have muscle memory in knowing where the controls are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I'm gonna equate that to sort of your treatment plan of what is your muscle memory for when you're activated to keep yourself calm so that you can use your executive. So if someone is prescribing psychedelic medication or drugs or whatever, psychedelic anything, what is the goal, and what is the care to the client?
Right.
And if the client is harmed in any way, is the goal to continue to make them do this? And
Right.
they so yeah, I would say like that's my standpoint, is that I personally couldn't legally and ethically
Right.
I'd lose my license. If someone's doing it like in Amsterdam or Europe or something like that, and
Yeah.
I mean, eventually science finds a way in certain things, and we as humans are always using plants and herbs and natural products to help really medicate in certain different ways, so if I'm sure someone's doing something with psychedelics and it's had some sort of result for whatever reason. I mean, I think like, and oftentimes like we prescribe medication to people that's like off brand,
Mm-hmm.
like we
You're
know that it does A, B, and C, so we're gonna prescribe it for this even though it wasn't made for that. The like thing, the serum or whatever that really makes your eyelashes grow
I have no
came from
idea
like
what
a
that
guac.
is.
There's like the stuff that you could take to make your eyelashes grow, and it was the result of glaucoma medication. Like that was
Huh.
just happened to be a side effect, was that it made your eyelashes grow. So then they just took that part of the chemical and then sold it as like this other product that isn't medication to help.
Just for your eyelashes.
Well, now
Oh
for
yeah,
like
yeah.
hair growth,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Like, yeah.
It's probably what I
So
use in order to grow the beard.
yeah, knew that beard looked like it was planned. But yeah. So there's I'm sure there's some empirical data somewhere that I've never this because that's not something I've looked up. And I couldn't speak from an expert standpoint.
Right.
But if you're talking about just my own personal experience, I've never done anything. And if someone's doing it, whatever.
Right. I've come from the mentality where like I've always wanted to try something at least once kind of deal. And I think when I was when minus I was actually drugged with like crack cocaine. They put it in my like in a drink when I was in Mexico. So like that one was just like holy fuck, like my heart's about to jump out of my chest, never gonna do it again. But I've taken ecstasy, I think when I was like 22. I was like, this is probably one of the best feelings I've ever had in my entire life. I'm never gonna do it again.
Okay.
The fact that I was almost gonna have an orgasm by washing my hands just says way too much. like there should be no drug for that shit.
I think that was an episode of either Buffy or Angel.
Was it?
No, it was Angel. I think it was Angel where he like took ecstasy. I believe it was ecstasy, but either way, it was some sort of drug like that. And the thing with Angel, this character, he's a vampire with a soul. He's been
I remember the
cursed
story,
by
yeah.
a gypsy woman, right? So that he can feel all the pain he's ever inflicted on people. But if he feels true, genuine happiness, like true bliss, the soul goes away and he's an evil vampire again, and he feels it with his fucking ecstasy. So then, like, it was Angel. His soul was like running around trying to like trap him,
Yeah.
and then put his soul back into him. So yeah, if you're talking about again like pop culture and real world experience, like there you go. Like apparently it was enough to make this gypsy curse be activated.
I'm gonna tell you right now that TV and movies really do not know how to portray drugs. Like they make, I'm not lying, like it's purposely painted in the worst possible way, and like you'll see very few movies that actually paint something in the closest way. Like I think Fear Loathing did a good job of the way that the ground is moving and bending. Midsummer did a pretty decent job with the way that psychedelics kind of affect the visuals. But for the most part, it's just like, oh, this giant thing. But from somebody who has been suffering from depression since about 15 years of his life, and have more recently been able to take it with the form of self-discovery. I mean, with the intention, I should say, of self-discovery. I would say about a month ago, I took shrooms for the first time in like a years, I would say. And my partner and the other member of our triad also like took shrooms, and I was quite possibly the most experienced in this. Granted, I took about, an eighth, which is you're going to be high for about 5 hours. And when I say high, it's like you're going to be losing function of like walking, and like part of like your brain is going to shut off, so the other part like just exuberates. But knowing that, consciously, I would always pull myself back to make sure that my partner Jay, she was having a good trip. To make sure that T, that like when he was having his emotional thing, like I would comfort him and like be there in order to do that. But like I took it again on Sunday, knowing that I didn't have any kind of responsibility to anyone whatsoever, and I never got pulled out of that space and was able to ask these questions to like deities and aliens and like the gods of the earth about like what is it that I have to do. And it was just like work on yourself, because you know what it is that you have to do, and feeling that kind of sense that I've been connected with the universe, and that like I've honestly been in a way where it's just like I'm definitely a lot less depressed in my action. I don't ever, like I really don't want to take mushrooms all that much. Like it's like I take it once and I'm like, I'm probably good for like another year. Like that's like, so I don't feel like I'm addicted for that. But at least in my experience, when you have somebody, like you said, from ancient culture that's trying to be a shaman, that's trying to guide people in that kind, it does become beneficial. And it's something that I feel that we can learn from, so long as we actually give a chance to see what we can what can come from it, because I'm not saying like everybody should take coke, everybody should, like, I'm like, say, stay the fuck away from man-made drugs, please.
Mm-hmm.
Things like weed, which have shown no signs of anybody dying, like there's no overdose in it, and then like controlled substances of mushrooms and stuff like that, which are part of earth that grows, can definitely, in my experience, help out. And I haven't run into that many people, but it's something that we should probably at least look into for the possibilities.
I would say the one thing that I disagree on is I do believe there are a lot of prescribed medicines that, that we shouldn't just say no to simply because we don't feel they're natural.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a therapist I get often, particularly with psychotropic medications. And you see that meme with Picard where he's just like, why does my antidepressant medication cause me to think of suicide, right? Like that, like there's always this thing about it, and what it is and it's not that the medication is causing suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like it has now turned on those thoughts. What it is you've had these of death and dying already.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't been active plans. They've been, I wish I was never born.
Yeah.
I wish I was never alive. There's no reason to be alive. I have no purpose. Nobody wants me. Nobody cares about me. And when we start taking antidepressant medication, what it starts to activate first before it resolves those emotional and cognitive distortions is it resolves our energy. Oftentimes when we feel depressed, we feel lethargic. We have no energy. We have no ability to move.
Right.
We're very sluggish. We have foggy brain. Like we get confused. We forget. We can't recollect like small things. Where did I put my keys? Right.
As you're holding them.
Now, yep. As you're holding them. Now the medication has activated your energy. You have the strength and like physical energy to do something. But you still feel pain and hurt. So your thoughts go from, I can't do anything about this pain, to, wow, I've come up with a solution to stop the pain, and that's to kill myself. I have energy to do it. Yeah. Now I can do it. So that's always like the societal bashing of like psychotropic meds is like, well, no, it's making it, and it's like, no, it takes a while to activate.
Yeah.
And you're feeling physically better, but you're not emotionally better, which is why we always want to do medication with therapy.
Yeah.
Or medication with support of friends and family, or if you have like a clergy or a religious group that you feel, so that when you express these thoughts, as you start to realize that they're now out of your body in a sense, like you can understand them better because you've actually spoken them versus keeping them in your head.
Right.
And the other thing that like when it comes to medication and psychotropic medication is like, why does it take so long? Why can't it be expedited? Why can't it be faster? I don't feel better fast.
You got so used to that reward.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the medication is we have serotonin in our brain and it makes us feel happy. But there are basically, like, the most basic way to explain it, 'cause again, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm definitely not a scientist, but the way that I explain it to patients is you have a harbor in your brain, right? So that's your synapses. And you have a neuron, and for you that it's carrying your serotonin, right? And that's a boat. So sometimes you don't have enough harbor boats to come in. We got like 2, and your boats are coming in at 10s and 20s. So you're not going to feel the serotonin as strong. Sometimes you have way too many harbors and not enough boats. You got like 10 harbors and like 2 boats coming in. You're not going to feel the serotonin. And sometimes you're missing both. So I got 1 harbor, 1 boat, tugging along. And the medication is taking a little while to activate or work because we're trying to find out if you need more harbors, more boats, or both. And no brain is the same from anybody else's.
Right.
And so your medication's just going to get adjusted, and we've got to sort of keep working at it. It sucks because you're still emotionally depressed, you're still not feeling good,
Hmm.
and it starts to feel frustrating. I'm going to therapy, I'm taking medication, I'm still not well. And so it really goes back to like the expectations we put on what we think wellness should be when it comes to
Mm.
mental health. Um, like just like someone who is attempting to lose weight, like that is very hard, and the weight that we've gained is years of habitual behaviors that we're trying to change, and there's no magic wand. It's the same with the medication. It's going
Hmm.
to help you expedite your boats and harbors, but it's not a magic wand. It's not a pure fix. You
Right.
still have to
You have
do
to
the
make
work
the
of
effort.
looking at
Hmm.
yourself.
Oh, that's. I mean, that's true. Like, in the end, it comes down to it's like you are the one who has the energy to make yourself feel better, and it's like those are just going to be helpful tools to start pushing you in that right direction.
And
Uh,
it sounds like that's what you're experiencing, is you're just needing a few
yeah.
tools to help activate for you what you desire, or what you could have or
Yeah.
have felt in the past.
All right. Well, I wanted to let you know. Thank you for coming on. We are hitting that 2 hour mark. So, if there's any kind of closing thoughts that you would like to leave with the chat.
Um, Closing thoughts. I'd like to chat. I really hope that this was informative. I love therapy. I love being a therapist. I love psychology. And I love being a geek. And the fact that I get to talk about the two, I can go on forever.
I was say like if you wanted to stay, but I know that you're probably gonna have to wake up and do some work in the morning.
Oh yeah, I have to work tomorrow.
Yeah,
But yeah, this is my drug.
yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, thank you, everybody, for putting me on. I'm sorry I couldn't read any of the chat comments. This is on my phone. It's not on my computer. But I mean, I really appreciate you, inviting me on your birthday.
No, thank you. Like I said, like I wanted to have people that were really good influences, like to my life that I feel can actually help out, and might as well. But yeah, like we had like Revlon saying that you had some really good analogies for like topics that were generally confusing, and to me, I completely feel the same because how you said there were so many like viewpoints that I had in my way where it's like this makes sense. It's like, well, there's also the other solution that like you look at it and getting to see those, it's like there's no ever a concrete single answer. And so kind of to know it's like, well, yeah, it's like while this happened, it might have definitely left some other possibility that is so much better. So look at it for the world that you have, not for what could have been.
No, oh my God, I'm so glad that was helpful for people. I always speak in metaphor and analogy. I love image. That's like the part of the artist in me.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes when you have such large abstract concepts, like to make them some way, that's just easier to digest.
Yeah. I I agree. Like I think metaphors and the best way, like if we can find the right metaphors to be able to speak with people or speak in the language that makes it so much easier for them to be able to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like my boats and harbors.
Yep.
My boats and hoes.
Yeah, butts and nuts. Tug those.
Got too many boats and not enough hoes. Or too many hoes and not enough boats. Sometimes
Right.
it's both.
Sometimes it's both. You just don't have butts and hoes. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful night.
You too. The puppies will be excited to see you soon.
All right, sweet. I get to see
Oh,
them in a couple days.
maybe I can show your peeps my blue girl. I don't know. Can I flip
Aww.
the camera? Yeah, there's a flip.
All right, let's get
Don't
that
look at my
camera.
messy room.
All right, so we're gonna be judging. That's Blue, guys. That's the baby girl, half husky, half Australian Shepherd. She's not happy that she's on camera right now.
No, so she has a. Speaking of anxiety, she has generalizing disorder and Prozac. So,
Poor baby girl.
and I use her a lot in therapy to help explain like medication. So she's on drugs.
She's a good dog.
Here's Madeline. That's
Hi,
Chilton.
Maddie.
There's little Maddie tail.
Oh, look
Are
at
you
her.
happy? You happy,
She's the
girl?
one that tugs around all the time, but she's such a pretty girl. She'll lick everybody.
Everybody. Is Baymax somewhere? Oh, and then Baymax is with his own.
Baymax, the ex sausage, now the most handsome little like half terrier, half chihuahua.
Oh, he fit though.
Oh, he look
looking-
he looking
he looking
good. All right.